Welcome back to Good Gym, guys. We've got Chris Doyle here, University of Iowa strength coach. We're going to talk a little bit about his journey to where he is now and what's changed along the way. Because you've been doing this a little while. I came to your speed clinic in 2001.
Yeah,
a while back. So, can you kind of introduce yourself just a little bit and to the Grit Gym tribe?
Yeah, really happy to be on the podcast here today with Adam, and just really convenient here at Grit Gym's here in Iowa City, so I have an opportunity to sit down with Adam. He said he went to our strength and conditioning camp in 2001. So it says with all that leads to is we've been here for a long time. We've been here since 1999. And personally, I've been in the coaching profession for about close to 30 years now. So just happy to have the opportunity to sit down, maybe share some of the lessons and experience and along the way with Adam, and happy to be on today.
Yeah, that's cool. I think it's an interesting thing that you say almost 30 years. Like I just crossed, I think I've been doing this since 2007. So 11 years versus, and I mean, I don't, like the more I learn, the more I'm like, I don't know anything.
Yeah, I would agree. Same thing. I mean, the more you learn, you're like, boy, I wish I knew this 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Yeah. And it's just, I think we're always learning. So.
Yeah, no kidding. What got you into this initially anyway?
Great question. When you're young, and easily influenced, I know just initially speaking, when I was even 5 and 6 years old, just 3 doors down, there was a garage, and there were a couple of cops in my hometown that lifted in that garage, and I would walk down and watch those guys. And coincidentally, one of their sons is the head strength conditioning coach at Minnesota, and came here as an assistant of mine at one point in time. But when you look at strength conditioning, if you want to be good in sports, whatever sport it is, whether it's football, wrestling, basketball, baseball, hockey, whatever you want to do, strength conditioning is measurable.
Yeah.
Okay, you can set goals, and then it's all about hard work. So maybe I was geared towards that. I like setting goals. I liked working. There were a bunch of guys and a bunch of kids in our area, not my town, in my neighborhood, that had basement gyms. If we made some money off paper routes, or we were, I lived in a fishing community, so to speak. If we made money working, we oftentimes would go spend it on lifting equipment, and we'd get and load up the basements, and we'd go to work, and it was it was fun to set goals and then work towards achieving them, and pretty rewarding when you do.
Yeah. When did it go from being like just experimenting with weights to like actually sitting down in a book or watching a video or learning from somebody else? Well, learning from somebody else.
As soon as you start training, you try to figure out ways.
Yeah,
you're immediately like, how do I do this better? How do I make progress faster? So there was a store in our downtown. It was called Hancock Tobacco. They sold tobacco and they sold magazines. So you take the train, you take the bus to Quincy Center, and actually the guy who ran the store ended up being my brother-in-law's dad. All right, so my sister married this guy's kid.
All right, I got it.
So, but get on the bus. You go up there, and there was Iron Man magazine, Perry Raider, Alliance, Nebraska, and all your basic mag strength and health and all. So you start reading, and then you flip to the back, and there's courses.
Yeah.
That and you buy the courses. They send you out. You read up on it. So it became a bit of an obsession probably at junior high, like 11, 12, 13 years old, and that's what was available. So that's what we tried to read. Then it was bigger, faster, stronger, and that started pointing you in the direction of training for sports. You're not just basement gym lifting, but so that's kind of how it started, I guess.
Yeah, that's it's interesting. When I interview a lot of these guys, it's like there's something around junior high. Yeah, like almost everybody has some kind of catalyst when they're real young. Yep. They got bullied, or they had somebody else that lifted and they wanted to be a big something. And in junior high they started learning, and then all of a sudden it's just like it took off for them. Like that's how it happened for me. Like, my grandma gave me my first book on strength and conditioning. Yeah. I was like, there's information about this?
Sure.
I had no idea.
Yeah. We had a Sears set. Red, white, and blue, plastic filled with cement. That was a Christmas, and so we get downstairs and you get a bench with it. And
my cousin had one of those.
Some ridiculous leg extension, leg curl on the end of it. You have to tear off because it just gets in the way doing bench presses.
Yeah, it's just an ankle biter. Yeah. And then you had to have one of your friends hold one side of the weight so that you could load the other side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, otherwise it would just flip.
Because they had the skinny rack. But I think all along with that, I was really, really lucky that throughout my upbringing, we cross, oftentimes when we get into coaching or we get into this, I cross paths with people that had a major impact on who I became and the person that I became. And so for me, it went from, your house. I mean, my mom and dad, my dad was a fireman, and my mom and dad were hardworking, blue collar people. Yeah. But then I got to a high school setting where I had a head high school football coach, not by the name of Jim Cotter, who was a head high school coach at our school for 42 years. Huge influence on me. Like, all right, now I can actually coach kids and maybe make a living. Coaching. Yeah. And then from there I went to Boston University where, we had talked about, you'd had Mike Boyle on one of your previous podcasts, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're in a room with Mike Boyle, who at the time was just getting started in this profession of strength and conditioning, and opened my eyes up to the point where you can do this for a living. At that time, going to high school, I thought, all right, I'm going to be a high school coach and teacher. Yeah. And then I realized, boy, you can just be a strength and conditioning coach and make the same money that these teachers make. Yeah. Why wouldn't I just be a strength coach? Yeah. And he introduced me to Mike Wojcik, and I ended up calling Mike and interviewing Mike Wojcik. You may or may not know Mike, but Mike has 6 Super Bowl rings. He's one of the most successful strength and conditioning coaches in the history of the sport of football. And he was a Massachusetts guy, Westwood High School, Boston College, Springfield. He was Mike Boyle's RA, resident assistant when he went to get his master's, when he went to Springfield. So he was the strength coach at Syracuse, and Mike was like, you need to talk to Mike Wojcik, and back then he was the track coach, he was a throws coach and a strength conditioning coach at the time. Yeah. So
those two mesh pretty well. I mean, it's a training sport with a training sport, right?
Exactly. So, I was really, really fortunate along my upbringing to cross paths with some people that maybe contributed towards shaping my thoughts on what I'm going to do and how I could do it well, and they provided awesome examples.
Yeah. When did it, you were an athlete, right? Mm-hmm. What'd you play?
I played in high school. I was a football player, and I threw some shot too. But growing up, you play everything. You play. I grew up in Boston, so everyone played. The bad athletes in Boston in the wintertime, we play hockey. The bad athletes in Iowa in the wintertime go to a wrestling match. So all my 3 boys wrestled because they grew up in Iowa. But if they had grown up in Boston, they probably would have played hockey in the winter, know. But I played all sports growing up, baseball, hockey, and basketball, football. And then in high school, it was football, and I threw shot.
Yeah. Cool. And then, you've been doing this for a little while. You said 30 years, almost 30 years, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you, when I came to that speed clinic in 2001, I was like, this dude is all about this stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, you were excited, it kind of it amped us up too, just your excitement, right? Yep. How do you stay all about it? How do you stay excited about doing this thing? Or is it just intrinsic? It's just you wake up in the morning, you're just no coffee needed, I'm going to work.
I'll have a cup of coffee now, but I don't even think about it. It's an odd question.
I'm full of odd questions.
Love what I do. Yeah, love doing it. I feel like there's that old cliche: if you find out what you love to do, you never have to work a day in your life. And that's all. That's a cliche, but most cliches are true. I can honestly say I love my job, and it changes here in this environment, in the college environment. Every year, you get 35, 40 new kids. Yeah. And they all have hopes and dreams, and they're motivated, and they come from all sorts of different backgrounds. So every year you have 40 individuals that, thankfully, and I'm thankful that they entrust me to coach them. Yeah. That every year they come in and they bring energy and they want to do great things. Yeah. So they excite me. Sure. And I get excited to help those guys and help kind of point them in the right direction and shape their futures, and not just physically, but also how they think, and really provide some strategies for these kids to successfully navigate being a student athlete at this level. So every year we get kids that come in and over a 4 or 5 year period, they mature and they move on. And then, Adam, they come back, and they come back with kids of their own. And when you're in your facility and you look around these walls, you can't see these on the video, but Chad Greenway comes walking in with his own kids, and he wants to introduce his children to you. Yeah. Okay. I know this. I don't bring my kids back to my high school or my college and introduce them to people I didn't like or that didn't have a positive impact on me. So oftentimes, if they come back and they want your kids to meet them, and they want their kids to meet you, that's pretty rewarding. That kind of full circles it, right? So I don't know. I think we're in the people business, and Johnny Parker once said, I don't coach weights, I coach people.
Yeah.
Johnny Parker is one of the icons and legends in the field that kind of led the way for the rest of us. We kind of stand on the shoulders of those guys. So I don't know. Really, really fortunate to be in the business of working with people and good people, and it's always evolving and changing.
Yeah. It sounds like you just got a heavy dose of caring. Like you care about the guys and where they go. I think coaching comes down to that. I don't know how you could be a coach and not have that.
100%.
I don't know why you'd want to be a coach in the first place.
Because there's a point in time, and you've probably experienced this, where you transition from, okay, I'm into strength conditioning because I'm trying to advance myself. I'm trying to advance my career. And then at some point in time, when you actually become a coach, it's no different than becoming a parent. Like now, your obligation, responsibility is for somebody else. Yeah. Like everything that you're doing is now secondary for yourself. Yeah. Everything is poured into, helping these people that you work with on a daily basis move forward.
Yeah, and that responsibility is almost daunting. It's like you can do, I say this a lot with the guys that work out at Grace, do whatever whatever with your body. That's one thing. Mm-hmm. But you have a responsibility to these people. Yep. You don't just get to do anything with them. Yep. Do not get them hurt.
Yeah, and that's part of the growth, and you're always trying to learn. How can we do this better? How can we do this more efficient? Who can we learn from? What's going to take us to that next step? In a more efficient manner. So I think that's part of the science of it too.
Yeah, and then along with that, from a perspective of motivation, how much is the motivation thing pivotal for somebody's success? Do they absolutely need it, or what's you can go with your thoughts on that.
I think people that really find an area that they're passionate about, find an area that they really, really enjoy doing on a daily basis, they have a chance to be great at it. If you don't truly love what you do, I think I think that you may fall short of becoming great at it. When I think of Simon Sinek, remember your why, right?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? And I think from a strength conditioning perspective, it's relationships. It's having an impact on the people you work with every day. It's leaving a legacy. It's about having meaningful relationships and doing meaningful work. That's our why. I truly believe that we are in the business of changing lives.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's I think remembering your why is a big part of it. And then who was the other guy? Zig Ziglar talked about motivation. But people say, oh, you don't need motivation. And then he says it's like bathing. If you don't bathe, then people quickly realize maybe you need it every day. Maybe you need something to remind you of what your why is on a daily basis. Yeah. So I think that's what motivation does. But long term, it's discipline and determination that truly takes you on the long haul where you want to go.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at, because motivation is great and everything, but what do you do when you don't have it?
Yeah,
it's gonna go away sometime. Yeah, you're not gonna feel like going to work out. You're not gonna feel like doing something. So that's why we have do it anyway permanent on everything. It's just you're just gonna have to do it anyway. And then is there any real ways that, or maybe examples in your life or ways that you enforce discipline with your guys or yourself that are just easy things to point at?
As far as our guys go, I think it's what's critical is that you connect with them and that you spend good quality time with them and building relationships. We sit down every single year with every single guy in our program and meet with them individually. Shut the door. Hey, what are your expectations? These are our expectations. What areas, what are the areas where we can expect the most improvement or where we need to focus on? What are the things you do really well that we can build upon? So, it comes down to the relationships and spending quality time with people and knowing that everybody's different. Everyone has different, everyone has a different personality, come from different backgrounds, different parents, different geographically, but everyone has their own unique qualities, and it's about getting to those and helping them. But to me, it comes down to building relationships and allowing for people to feel like they're in an environment that's best for them.
Sure. And you've got 4 or 5 years with these kids and then they're done.
Yeah.
So you're really trying to gas them up.
There's two different ways to look at it. If you look at it from the from an NFL perspective, they may have a guy 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, their doors are revolving constantly. Or you might have a guy for a year or two, and that guy comes to you, and he may come to you, and he may be banged up or have different injuries or what have you, or a different medical history, different injury background. He may come from one college program where they trained a certain way, and now here he is. He's in the NFL, and you need to train around to train through that, or train him beyond that to the next level. Here, like when we get a guy, we know we can count on. Hey, we're going to have this guy for 4 or 5 years. So how do you see that? Like how do you format that? Like what's important on the front end? Like what's important in the developmental stages? What kind of foundation do you want to build? What do you want to build this person's human movement off of? In what areas of correction are needed? What kind of individualized programming is going to be needed to really unlock the potential for this athlete? So we can count on. We get 4 to 5 years, and we have about 42 weeks a year of quality training time.
Yeah,
we know it's coming. Like we know we're going to have that opportunity with the guy. So I look at it as really positive, very positive, and very unique in that way that we can kind of count on that and frame it out and take it in stages. And as their maturity improves, the training complexity becomes greater. And fine tuning, that guy's athletic career as he builds a foundation and he becomes, better on the field and more mature in his training. I think that we can become a little bit more mature in the training design.
Yeah, no kidding. Do you find that like a little challenging versus like a freshman versus, because you're going like 18 to, you might have a 23-year-old.
Mm-hmm. There's challenges to both sides of it. There's challenges when you bring kids in. You need to do a great job of identifying what their needs are. And make sure you address them properly. And you need to have really strong, well thought out progressions as to how you're going to teach them the basic foundational movement mechanics in so many different areas. You can look at lower body push progressions, single leg progressions. You can posterior chain progressions. You look at the way we train their upper body push pull, vertical push, horizontal push pull. But then you look into all your COD mechanics, your linear mechanics. There's so much going into it. So I think it's important, Adam. You're sitting in what we have. Like we never had this before. You're sitting in a strength conditioning conference room. I don't know if there's a lot of them. And they're around the country. Like everybody has refueling stations and locker rooms and all those things. Well, we have a conference room because we sit down as a staff, and we've been really fortunate here. I've had tons of guys come through our program that have contributed a great deal to strength conditioning at Iowa football. I've learned a ton from the guys that have been on our staff over time. Big part of that is listening. Like sit down around a table and put it all out on the table and listen to guys. And we are critical, and we question one another. I say, what are the best teaching progressions, and getting people, getting the foundation built on young athletes, and and we put it out on the table and we discuss it, and everybody contributes, and then we walk out of the staff room. We know exactly how we want to progress these guys. We have 5 different levels of training maturity in our program. We call them developmental 1, developmental 2, transitional, team, and advanced. Okay. So guys progress through those, and in different phases they'll see different types of stimulus. And as they advance and their training maturity increases and the complexity increases, maybe the focus on rate of force development increases. But you can't do that without building a foundational
That's
base.
what I was going to ask. Like, how do you?
Right, the postural control. How can they move through athletic ranges of motion while maintaining great posture?
Yeah. Because like, do you even put a Tendo unit on a developmental?
No, we
don't.
No, we don't. I mean, that's
the point.
We get to that. We get to that eventually, but not without developing a foundation of good, clean, athletic range of motion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And that, is that something that's changed? One of the questions I want to ask you, like you said, you came here in '99. You'd already been strength coaching for a while up to that point. What's changed since 1999, 2009, almost 2019? Maybe even since 2013. Just 5 years ago.
You bring up a great question. I would say early on. I would say initially we learned out of necessity. Like we learned more about functional movement. For so long it was how much can you lift and how strong can we get these guys? Well, that leads to injury, right? So if we're numbers driven, it leads to injury. So initially functional movement became an area of growth for us. We learned more through functional movement screening and not just the FMS, but there's a lot of people that have used screening.
Yeah.
Mike Clark out of Integrated Systems, out of the California guy, that was a guy that influenced. Al Vermeil was using screening back 99, 2000.
Yeah, he's not a young guy.
But Mike Boyle, had some significant influence on us in that regard. Great cook. Yeah. So you look at what the best people, like these people are the best people, in strength conditioning. So we learned a great deal from those people. Hey, how do you identify? How's a guy? What's it supposed to look like?
Yeah.
Like, what is this squat pattern supposed to look like? What is the lunge pattern supposed to look like? What are single leg mechanics? Like, where's their knee supposed to be? Yeah. What is their posture, their torso supposed to look like? So you identify some what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. You correlate that with some basic movement patterns. You evaluate it, and you gain a better understanding of how the body moves, and then you develop systems to get them to move the way you want it to look. Yeah. Right. I know that sounds really simple, but that's what we're trying to do. So
that's the 30,000 foot view, right?
Yeah, we channel them into corrective exercise. Yeah. And right now we're working with about 5 different corrective exercise groups. There's posterior chain, there's hip and single leg, there's upper body, there's torso. So we have some corrective exercise groups that we channel guys into, and we work on and developing those patterns.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that was a big part of it. Was functional movement. Like, how can we help these athletes move it more efficiently?
How are you defining functional?
I don't know. I mean,
because that's one of those things. Some people are like, "Oh, functional," and they scoff at it, and some people are like, "No, why wouldn't you?"
I don't know. Moving without compensation.
That's kind of how I look at it too.
I don't know of everyone's gonna have their own definition, but I want athletes to move without compensation. I want them to move. That's what we're looking for. And if there's compensation or there's asymmetry, let's fix it. All right. Yeah. So, and that might require some lengthening. That might require some activation. That may require some strengthening or stability. Yeah. So, you develop systems. So that was the functional movement part of it. Then later on, I think that we learned more about, it's not how much you can do, for example, in season. It's like, hey, how much can we do on Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday and still be recovered and play well on Saturday? It's kind of the opposite. Like, how little can we do and perform optimally? Yeah. Like let's be smart here. The nothing's more important than game day. How do we perform optimally game day? And really, basics abbreviated best, which was the basics abbreviated best was like the hallmark of. There was a book out of Cyprus, Greece. There was a magazine that came out 6 times a year, every other month, called Hard Gainer. Okay. And that was right on. It was basics abbreviated best. And the Russians, what do the Russians say? Train as heavy as possible, as frequently as possible, as fresh as possible. Yeah. So we're like, hey, how do we train, at the highest levels we can. But as brief as possible and still be optimum on game day. So that was a learning curve, and that was a growth period for us at a point in time. More recently, I believe the analytics has become a factor. All right, and I think some people are married to analytics and they're absolute in their interpretations of analytics. I think that simply put, a little young for that. Maybe. Analytics allows us maybe to more accurately program design. Yeah. All right, and that's it. It allows us to more accurately measure some things. Yeah. Track some things. I like to look at trends more than acute markers. Yeah. I like to look at trends over time. But there's some things that allow us to better measure as strength conditioning coaches. There are Tendo units or gym or whatever you want to call it, whatever you're using. There's tons of stuff out now. There's even those the best things. Sure, there's best things. G-Flight. There's a lot of different things out there. So back in the day, it was, with Mike I remember Mike Boyle using just jump pads, but that gives you some pretty accurate feedback in the weight room as to how are these guys responding to the training that we're doing. Yeah. So, there's way back was a jump pad, but then there's Tendo units we've been using for almost 20 years now, 99, 2000 is when I started, I think it was Westside, where you read about Tendo units and compensatory acceleration training with those guys. But so you get the Tendo units, there's GPS, and we've played with, from a recovery perspective, HRV. And we use iThlete for HRV. How do you like that? I felt like it was a valuable tool. Yeah. We're not, it's not absolute. Right. But I felt like anytime that you can increase the awareness of sleep, hydration. Well, that's good. That's a good point. That's a really good point. We did not hammer on that when we used it. It's like you get what you measure. If you say, hey guys, we're going to test, when we come back after this training phase, we're going to test pull-ups. Guess what? You guys are going to get better at pull-ups. Right. Yeah. If we say, hey, we're going to run 60-yard shuttles, guess what? Your guys are going to get better at 60-yard shuttles. Yeah, that's a good point. So if we're going to emphasize recovery, we're going to increase the awareness of recovery. And I'm going to tell you what it did most, Adam. It created conversations. Oh, sure. Okay, so now here I have HRV, and we have these athletes, and I'm tracking these athletes, and I see an athlete that's trending down. I'm going to talk to that guy. Yeah. Hey, what's going on? Hey, is it a big academic period for you? Are you getting sick? Or, are you struggling? You have other areas of your life that maybe you're struggling.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's basically measuring stress.
Exactly. It's measuring. That's it.
Yeah,
it's measuring stress. So if there's 10 guys a week that's going to create conversations with, that's 10% of my team that we're sitting down and spending quality time with.
Yeah.
And we are using quantifiable, measurable, measurable data to create that conversation. So it's not we're not pulling it out of thin air.
Yeah.
So that's really valuable. Most recently, we've moved to fatigue science, and we're tracking sleep more. And
how are you collecting that? Like with their phone or
fatigue science? We have this fatigue science.
Oh, okay,
yeah. So that's been really, really good. What we found, just tracking our own data over time, we found that guys that are sleeping well, their HRVs are pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. So
sleep's a big deal.
Yeah. Like, are we really tracking the right thing here? What's most important? If we really heighten awareness of sleep, is that going to give us really the end result that we're looking for? So sleep has become really important to us.
By the way, guys, HRV is heart rate variability. So if it's all over the place, we know that we got a stressed out person. If your body doesn't differentiate between stress, so you have the design stress that you're putting on the weight room, and if you're having a bunch of other stress outside of that, then your body can't get the magic that you want it to have and develop from that stimulus. So I just wanted to fill them out.
Like sometimes when your HRV drops, it's not always a bad thing. Like if we know we had a really big training block, like we had a Monday, Tuesday, and we know the loads we know it was going to be heavy. We knew that our speed and conditioning work was going to be at a certain level. You may have a drop, and it's expected in HRV. But then as you go into maybe an unloading phase where you're expecting it to bounce back, if it doesn't, then that's alarming. Like, all right, what's going on here?
So it's really, as a strength conditioning professional, some of these analytics really allow us to better measure what's going on with the athlete and thus allow us to better design programming. The GPS stuff on the field has also been very, very important.
How are you using that?
We have it on our athletes, and we're measuring practices, we're measuring training, we're measuring games as well. And it was funny when we started. So it's been 5-6 years now that we've been on GPS. I think it was 13 was the first season, and so we collect this data. I walk up to our head football coach, Coach Ferentz, and I put the printout on his desk, and he looks at me and he's like,
"What does this mean?" I have no idea.
That's what I mean.
I had no idea. Now 5 years later, we have a much greater understanding of what we're reading. Back at that time, I think there were maybe 3 other schools in the NCAA that were using GPS. There weren't any NFL teams because some professional athletes are skeptical. They don't want something like that in their body. They don't want anyone measuring how fast they're moving or how fast they're not moving because it's
that's probably more like it.
So
you measuring total volume too?
We measure total. The most critical factors, are high speed distance, like when an athlete's running over 90% of their maximum acceleration, because those are the yards that you really have to recover from.
Right. Yeah. That's those are the most taxing ones.
Yeah. And that's something that we probably track most. There's an integrated load where they use an algorithm and they use heart rate exertion, they use total volume, they use high speed distance, maximum acceleration, also change of direction, accelerations, decelerations, and also collisions. And they put that in, and we can get a number, integrated load, what the athlete's stress, what the amount of stress. Yeah. But this has really allowed us to better design training in the summer, because we can design training programs that simulate games more accurately.
No kidding. Yeah.
Okay, return to play protocols. So you have a guy coming off a hamstring or an ankle or what have you, and we can put a GPS unit on that athlete and match them to their pre-injured numbers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And also we can, if we're working an athlete off to the side, say over a 3-day period, we can take his data and lay it over the top of an athlete that's practicing on the field at the same position. Like, this guy's a receiver, is coming off a hamstring. This guy's a receiver that's practicing. This guy over here that's off the side working with strength conditioning staff, his volume, his high-speed distance, his maximum acceleration, how does it compare to the guy that's practicing? Then you can go into the receiver coach's office or walk into the office coordinator, head coach, and say, this athlete over here can safely transition to the field. We're confident that they can, because we have 3 days of data to back that up. Because anytime, you know as well as anybody, if you have somebody return injury and they have another setback, typically they go back. Now it's longer. So it's allowed us to better, more accurately measure and design programming, return to play protocols, and also practices. It will affect our head football coach is very progressive. Everyone think, oh, he's the longest tenured coach in college football. He's been at Iowa coaching in his 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and now his 60s. He's old school. Kirk is very, very open-minded to technology. He is.
Sure.
He wants to find out how can we more efficiently move our guys forward. So he is extremely progressive. He wants to know. He wants to know the facts. He's not going to just be, it's not SOL for Kirk. It's not SOS for Kirk. He wants to find out how we can do things better. So we've been fortunate that we have a head football coach that is really open to the technology, and we've been able to experiment with it and learn from it.
Yeah, and it's even there. It's kind of an amazing thing. That wasn't a deal. This is a very recent thing.
Yes, when you look at the long term, absolutely, it's recent, and more recently, Adam, over the past few years have we kind of grown to understand it, where we can apply it.
Yeah, are you noticing it different between positions, like how you apply it to a lineman versus a receiver versus a quarterback or a running back?
Absolutely, we started with everybody on GPS, and then we've grown away from. The closer you are to the ball, the less the GPS plays a role, right? So,
that's what I was thinking.
But the further away, the perimeter people, all of your DBs, also the way the game of football is nowadays, there's so much sub-package stuff. So you're playing with 5 DBs, you're playing with 6 DBs, or you're playing with 3 or 4 wideouts, whereas the old traditional tight end, split end, flanker, fullback, tailback, the traditional regular formation.
Might even have 2 tight ends.
You might have 2 tight ends at Iowa, or you might have 3 receivers. So we have a greater need at the perimeter for measurement. We have less of a need, inside. Yeah. So our offense, defensive line, we don't get a lot out of it, quite honestly. Yeah. Our quarterbacks.
Yeah, I figured it'd be better for the skill guys.
If you're a run option kind of team, and you had a quarterback that ran a lot, you might put it on him.
Sure.
We're a little bit more traditional.
Guard. Yeah.
With a more of a pro style quarterback offense. So it's our perimeter guys. Yeah. Really. And our linebackers and tight end. Our linebackers and semis as well.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool to look at. I would almost think I bet you just felt like you were just swimming in the ocean, or maybe spitting in the ocean, maybe more like.
Yeah, just looking at
when you first started, I meant.
And there's absolutely, and there's no peer-reviewed journal research on it.
Yeah.
There's nobody you can call and say, hey, what do you, there weren't a lot of people.
You're basically the collector of the data right now.
That's all, and we had to collect it, but now we can compare. We can compare a Tuesday in September compared to a Tuesday in November. Yeah. We compare the first 3 days of fall camp, 2013, 14, 15, to 2017 and 18. Hey, what did our first 3 days of fall camp look like in 2013? What did the first 3 days of spring football look like 5 years ago? And we can compare. There's other little things. There's little things that we didn't know about that we learn more about now. For example, if a receiver's GPS numbers climb on a Tuesday practice, then we check his HRV or his sleep the next day, and it's not good. We realize that this guy's had trouble recovering from the previous day's practice. You can communicate with their offensive coordinator, receiver coach, say, hey, we need to watch this guy today. Yeah. So thus you watch him, thus maybe you'd like to think that you might have avoided a problem.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you probably did. I mean, that a kid coming off of less sleep is more likely to get injured. His play's going to suck. He's only going to take away.
Right.
It's just in your best interest.
Yep, and it depends on. In every case is different. Some initially with some of the recovery stuff, you're using that data to change behavior. Yeah. You're trying to educate young people. Hey, well, this is what it's going to take to play at this level. You're going to have to sleep a certain amount. You have to get enough hydration. You're going to eat enough fruits and vegetables. You're going to eat regularly. You have to do your soft tissue work. And if you don't, you're going to struggle to recover from day to day. And sleep is just such a critical component to that. But you're using some of the analytic data, recovery-based analytic data, to change off-field behavior, your lifestyle behavior. Yeah. Now, if you have a guy that's really experienced and you've been with them 4 or 5 years and you've grown to trust how they live and how they operate from day to day, and then we may change training stimulus for a guy like that. Sure. Because we've learned to know that we need to. Yeah. So, again, what end of the spectrum? Are they a developmental guy, a foundation, just got here? Yeah. Are they a guy that's been in our program 4 to 5 years? Yeah. So you might use that data a little bit differently based on the individual case. Yeah.
So do you find that those more advanced guys, are you playing with their program more than you would play with a developmental guy's program? Or is most of your attention on both ends of that spectrum, or is it everybody's just kind of?
I would say there's a little bit more freedom and flexibility with our older guys. Yeah. Our younger guys, we have certain movement patterns that we want them to establish and be excellent at. So what do we need to do with our younger people to correct any compensations, any asymmetries, and get them to functionally move through these patterns efficiently? So, we're trying to get them through, a portal, so to speak, right? Our older guys have been through that, and now they may have individual needs, and we may be a little bit more flexible with our more mature athletes. I could imagine if you're in an NFL setting or in a professional sports setting where you're dealing with a guy who's 30 years old or 35 years old or the older adult population, there's got to be a lot of flexibility. We know to train the football athlete, we know there's going to be ground-based power activities. We know that there's going to be three-dimensional movement. We're not going to train with machines. And then there's going to be multi-joint movement. Okay, there's a lot of different ways to address those. Like we're not 100% married to any one particular training mode. There's a lot of ways. They say that 5 and 4 equals 9, 6 and 3 equals 9, 7 and 2 equals 9. There's a number of different ways to get to 9. There's a number of different ways to effectively train ground-based power. There's a lot of different ways to train three-dimensionally. Okay, and then there's a lot of different ways to apply multi-joint movement, because that's the way we perform, right? We perform as a one neuromuscularly coordinated unit on an athletic field. So we're training athletes. Those are some of the categories that we're going to address in a weight room. There's a lot of different ways to do that, and as people mature and deal with certain functional movement challenges or injuries, you may have to be a little bit more creative in how you address those needs.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, we run into that a lot because we're a general population. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just different. But even I was talking with Bo Bauer the other day.
Yeah.
And he was talking about like his experience at Denver versus who was it? Was it Patriots? I think he was. No, he's talking about Kittle. Where's Kittle at?
Oh, Kittle is at San Francisco.
San Francisco. Yeah. And he was talking about how one of their methods versus like a lot of bands versus a lot of weights, or a lot of and it's just like you said, like there's tons of different ways to get tons of different methods to get the same thing done.
I don't know a lot about the NFL.
Or either of them.
Those guys. I don't know a lot about those guys. I know we have guys that come back and train. We have an NFL locker room here because there's times in the out of season where we could have as many as 15 to 20 NFL veterans that are training in Iowa City.
Cool.
Which is still a lot of fun to work with those guys. I think partly they come back here because they know us. I mean, we've been here a long time, so there's a relationship. I hope that they come here to train with us because they feel like training here is a good thing for them. That it's going to help their job security. So I don't know a lot about what's going on at the individual 32 NFL teams. No. I know that as you design programming, I know that there's certain things that need to be addressed, and it needs to be done in a progressive way. And you need to apply some form of progressive overload. If you continue to do the same thing over time, the body stops to stops to adapt, and then the progress halts.
Yeah. Well, I think you just nailed it. Like that's the two things. Like start people where it's appropriate, and then progress them the way they need to be progressed. Yeah. Like if you get those two things down, you're probably doing all right.
Yeah, I mean, keep it simple, stupid, right? The kids, Mike and Boyle instilled that with me a long time ago. Like, hey, let's, coach what you can coach and coach it extremely well, and be simple in your progressions but progress. I mean, we need to progress people in the area of improved performance and improved health.
Yeah, that's one of the things with when we get like interns and new guys, they always want to do like the sexy new thing.
Sure.
It's like the silver object or the shiny object syndrome, and it's like just dumbbell bench. It's good. Just do dumbbell bench with them. You don't got to do like a one kettlebell bottoms up press. Like you don't need that.
Yep.
But well, Coach, is there anything else that you really want to get across before we wrap this up? Like words of wisdom or.
I don't have a lot of words. I want to thank you for making this easy. Like you guys, you came over here and you and Rachel set up and came over to visit us on our turf a little bit. So you made it really easy for us.
Well, it's pretty tough place to come to. It's real ugly and gross, and obviously you guys really.
We're lucky. We have an awesome facility. We're lucky. But I thank you for coming over and spending some time, and it's great. It's always great to talk about a field that I think is a great field in strength conditioning and helping people, and I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, you're doing a really cool thing here with these kids. Like all the football guys that come out of here that I meet, they're solid individuals.
Yeah, we're lucky that I think we have a pretty solid, stable head football coach, and as a result, I think that we attract good kids, and
Yeah.
we in strength conditioning we directly benefit, from having awesome kids,
Yeah.
and I think that's part of, the mentality. When kids come in here, I think they know that strength conditioning is going to be a big part of their college experience, and they come to Iowa football knowing and wanting that.
Yeah, you're in more contact with the kids than anybody else. I mean, you kind of have to be, aren't you?
We spend a lot of time with the guys. I tell the guys that imagine if you go to college, I imagine taking the same class with the same professor 2 hours a day in the same classroom for 5 years.
Yeah.
That's the kind of exposure you're going to have to strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
Whereas if you start out your college experience in the first fall semester, you go, you know what, biology is not for me. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to switch into, the College of Business, and I'm going to pursue a degree in accounting. You can switch, and you can take other classes and find other professors. And here we have a really high exposure to the guys. I consider it to be a huge advantage because we get to spend more time coaching and teaching and being with guys and going through the journey and the process and all that stuff. I mean, that's what we enjoy. So we're really, really lucky that we have that kind of exposure to working with our guys, and they're great people, and that's really where the fun happens.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you seem to be a very positive influence on them. So
thank you.
Every time I've been in here, every time I've been in the setting, it's just like, yeah, this is cool.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Anyway, usually I say like, where can I follow you? But I bet you don't have an Instagram, do you?
I don't have an Instagram. I do have Twitter. We have Twitter. It's kind of more of a kind of a professional. I would call it more of a professional Iowa football account, but it's my name. It's at Coach Doyle or at Coach_Doyle.
So you can follow him there.
Yeah, it's on. So Twitter, you'll see some mostly program stuff on there.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's been good.